Avast there, Muppet fans. I'm Kevin Bishop, who you may know as Jim Hawkins in Muppet Treasure Island. And I'm thrilled to be here 25 years later to help introduce an incredible crew of Muppetational folks today as part of D23's Muppet Mayhem. So without further ado, please welcome your host, Leigh Slaughter, Vice President of the Muppet Studio at Walt Disney Imagineering.
Thank you so much, Kevin. On behalf of D23, the official Disney fan club, I'm so thrilled to be here with an incredible group of people today, true legends of entertainment. In honor of D23's Muppet Mayhem celebration, we've assembled some of the creative geniuses behind so many things that we all love, from the Muppet Show to Muppet Treasure Island and so much more. So let's meet them.
Hi, I'm Bill Barretta, one of the Muppet performers, and been a part of a lot of projects with the Muppets over the years, including films like Muppet Treasure Island, part of the ABC series Dinosaurs, and many other things.
Hi, I'm Dave Goelz. I joined Jim in 1973, and I've been, I've worked on most of the things we've done, almost everything we've done since then, including The Muppet Show, Dinosaurs, Muppet Treasure Island, all the Muppet movies. And it's been almost 47 years now, and I haven't really been able to find another way to make a living.
Hi, I'm Brian Henson. I joined Jim in 1963 when I was born, son. And I've been working actually on all sorts of stuff. I started as just hanging out in the corner during the Muppet Show. That's mostly what I did. That was what I was very good at. And then I directed and produced Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet Treasure Island, executive produced Dinosaurs, Muppets Tonight, and did a lot of that stuff and had a ball with these guys.
Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to ask you a tough question. Do you have a favorite Muppet project?
You got it. It's very hard. I will say that my favorite Muppet project, because it's the most important to me, the most important is wrong. My favorite is Muppet Christmas Carol, only because I was so scared of making it and then so pleased with the result. It was the first big thing that we did after my dad died. I directed it, but everybody made it. It was an army of people, and Dave was amazing with his performance of Gonzo's Charles Dickens. But it was just, it was a wonderful experience. It was very, very ambitious. We made it for not very much money and made, I just think, a very, very special film that I'm very proud of. So I guess I would say it's for me, it's my favorite because I was terrified of it, thought that I would totally screw it up, and then I don't think I did.
You did a spectacular job.
Yes, unbelievable.
Thank you. You have to say that, though, because I just set you up to say that by saying...
No, have to say that. No, because everything else you've done is not great.
Say it to dinner guests.
Bill, do you have a favorite project?
I have a favorite and then a very close favorite. My favorite would have to be Dinosaurs, because without that and having the opportunity to be a part of that, I never would have met all of these people that I ended up working with. And thankfully, Brian was part of that and helped me along during that time and kind of made me feel like I was part of, this team. And then it turned into more things. And then after Treasure Island came Muppets Tonight. And I think that's a big favorite for me because I got to really play with the Muppet performers more and introduce some characters that have been inside of me and trying to get out as me, because I thought, as an actor, but I found this new way of expressing myself. So I'd say Dinosaurs and Muppets Tonight. Sorry, Dave, you got dinner. I know.
No, it's a really fascinating answer, Bill.
And then really, it's probably my favorite role has been Dave's friend.
Hey, what's your favorite? And tell us, how did you get started with the Muppets? The Muppets tomorrow is coming to Disney Plus. How did you enter into this world that was just so outrageous and so forward thinking at the time?
Well, it's going to be a long one.
I I had been a Muppet fan since probably college when they did the Ed Sullivan Show. So I loved the Muppets, but my career was in Silicon Valley. I was an industrial designer, and I happened to discover Sesame Street because my friends who had kids were watching it, and that was the end of my industrial design career. Really, you could cut it off there, because I became obsessed. I started making puppets. And I had always loved puppets, but I was only obsessed about what Jim was doing. And just by luck, we met, and that's how it all went from there. Getting back to favorite projects, my top three are: number one, Muppet Christmas Carol; number two, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas; and number three, I can't tell you number three because Disney doesn't own it, but it's Fraggle Rock.
Brian, you had a front row seat to all of this growing up. Do you have any memories from the Muppet Show?
Yes. I was growing all the way from very young age. My dad was a workaholic, so he was always working. He was always at the workshop or he was on stage. And there were five of us. I have four siblings. And so we would always, like, if my dad was working on the weekend, which was most weekends, he would take like two of us in. So, and we would just hang out in a stage. At 8 years old, I would hang out on a stage for 16 hours while my dad was shooting, and he used to love doing 16-hour days. And so I was just sort of around. I think of myself as like, I must have just been like this kind of scruffy little kid. And I remember I'd always have like a paperback sci-fi novel, Heinlein or something, in my pocket, and I would just be reading. But I was just there. I mean, it was just an automatic for me. And during the Muppet Show years, I was mostly in boarding school in Massachusetts. Well, no, for the second half of the Muppet Show. And I would go to England on my breaks. And at boarding school, you have longer breaks because you don't get 3-day weekends and stuff when you're in boarding school. So then they just make the breaks much longer so that you can go home. So I would fly home to London. And then when I was on break, I would just go in my dad's car with him every morning to the Muppet Show and stay until he was done. And he was always the last one out, which would be like 14 hours later, and then go home. And I loved it. But for me, most of my memories were hanging out in the Muppet Workshop, where Jan Rosenthal, Amy Van Gilder, all these great puppet builders were building puppets all the time. And I remember they were always listening to the Bee Gees. It was like just playing all the time, the Bee Gees, and making crazy stuff. And then Amy would say to me, Brian, you need to do something. Make me a watermelon. I need a singing watermelon for this show, and I need this, and I need that. And then at one point I was like, I'm going to make a talking potato, a rod puppet with. So I started making puppets just because Amy got tired of me just running around doing nothing. And that was fun. I actually made the first penguin Muppet. I actually made the first one, and I remember Frank picked it up, and it was not well made. And then he used it in Lullaby on Broadway, which we did for one of the episodes, and he puppeteered my penguin. And of course he deliberately did a really, really great job. And then Muppet Penguins took off. And after that, we made all sorts of Muppet Penguins. But my little claim to fame during the Muppet Show was I made the first Muppet Penguin. But honestly, I remember it as like being at home. I loved it. And actually, I say that my dad worked crazy hours, but in those years in England, the unions were so strong in the late 70s that everyone was in a union. And in order to get overtime, which my dad, Dave will tell you, my dad used to love going to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and still be shooting at 3 o'clock in the morning that night. He actually liked crazy long days. And so he would, on the Muppet Show, he would ask for overtime every day for shooting. I mean, initially he would ask because he wanted overtime, and he assumed that they'd say, yeah, sure. And they would always vote, or they needed, everybody in the crew had to say, okay, for overtime, to get overtime. And every single day he'd ask for overtime, and every single day it was rejected. And so my dad was always finished at 7 p.m. And so one thing I remember that I really enjoyed was what would happen on stage at 6:45 p.m. Because everybody knew there was these big clocks on the wall with a second hand that literally went and when that second hand hit 7 p.m., you could keep rolling and keep the lights on until you were finished with that take, and then everything was switched off. And the amount of work that would happen on the Muppet Show between 6:45 and 7 was always amazing. And it was amazing to watch. And everybody was like, the cameras would be whipping across the stage. We've got to get over to this other set. We've got to shoot at 10 to 7. They would be still shooting a scene and still have to move everybody and shoot another scene and have to be finished by 7 o'clock.
Dave, what are some of your memories of those days on the Muppet Show? And how did Gonzo come to be?
Well, I can't tell you all some of my favorite memories I can't tell you. It was the chaos. For me, the Muppet Show was a learning experience. I didn't know, I just was thrown into the deep end. And it was, I was not a performer. I belonged at home on the couch. And then Danny Kaye would walk in to the room, and our rehearsal hall had 2 doors. And whenever I saw a big star come in, I would go out the other door because I just thought, I don't belong here. I can't be here. And I was so inhibited. And Frank used to, that I choked my performances. I would say things like, they'd say, well, come in and be boisterous. And I'd go like, well, okay, I'm boisterous. And Frank would say, you got to let it out, your job. And he would always come over to me and put his hand on my shoulder and say, Dave, your job is to be a fool. And I tried, but it took me like 2 or 3 years before I could really cut loose. So that's what I remember about that, the show.
Do you remember how Gonzo came to be?
Oh, I've told the story so many times. That's why I was trying to evade that. He started out being a weirdo who did acts. I think Jerry Jewell created this kind of outcast weirdo who did stupid acts and thought they were high art. And so Jim picked that particular puppet, the Gonzo puppet from an earlier project. And they kind of wanted me to be more manic with him. And I felt that I couldn't because his eyes were so downcast. So at the end of the first season, I asked Jim if I could build a new Gonzo. And he said, yeah. And I said, I'd like to add an eye mechanism. That's why I like to do it. And so I went back to New York and built a new Gonzo with the eye mechanism. So second season, I came back and he could be more excited. It just made more sense for him to get high energy. Years go by, he's getting more high energy. Bill Barretta comes along. He wrote Gonzo always saying, cool, and, being very enthusiastic. And so that was kind of phase 2 of Gonzo. And then phase 3 was after I had therapy. I think Jerry Jewell and I, Jerry and I were great friends, and Jerry was our head writer. He kind of saw what was happening with me, but he didn't want to know details. He just thought Gonzo would make a great Charles Dickens. And so that was phase 3. I had a chance to do this wonderful dialogue, this soulful dialogue, and it sort of completed that character. So now I have a menu of things to choose from. I can do the sort of sad outcast, or I can portray him as manic, or I can go soulful. So it really was a process over many years of enlarging that character.
Bill, were you a fan of the Muppet Show? What are some of you? No. You were the only one that wasn't.
No, I can't. I mean, I actually wasn't an avid watcher. I knew it, and I certainly loved it. Because it was always filled with the greatest guest stars, and the characters were always hysterical. And I can tell you, I worked at a place called Sesame Place, which was a theme park after Sesame Street, and that's where I actually ended up meeting Brian. And that was the first time I ever met Jim, who came through the gate. And it was this like out of body experience. I went and shook his hand.
Dave, something that not everybody knows about you is that your first credit was actually in a Disney movie. Will you share a bit about that?
I had a friend whose father played clarinet in studio orchestras. And one summer after the 7th grade, the father arranged for him to be an extra in The Parent Trap. and he could bring a friend. And so we went down. I think his mother drove us down to downtown LA, and we went to the SAG office and got a permit to do a freebie, like without joining the union, as extras. And so we spent 2 days shooting. I couldn't believe, I grew up like a mile from Disney Studios, and yet I couldn't believe I was inside there working and getting paid a fortune. It was like $20.20, 24 cents a day, $24.20 a day. I couldn't believe you could make so much money in show business. Because on the open market, as a 16-year-old, whatever I was, 15-year-old, I was worth maybe $1 a day, So this was like boom, and it was absolutely magic. And I totally fell in love with the short-haired Haley Mills. I didn't really care about the long-haired one, but the short-haired one was crazy cute to me. And it tormented me for years. And then, many years later, I was working on that same stage with the Muppets. It's just eerie where life takes you.
Okay, we cannot talk about Muppet Treasure Island without the incredible Kevin Bishop. So let's welcome him aboard.
Bravo.
Oh, hello.
Kevin, what's it like reflecting back on this film 25 years later?
It's a depressingly long amount of time. Yes, I can't believe it's quarter of a century. It doesn't feel that long ago. I actually had my 15th birthday on set. So that gives you an indication of how old I am now.
Just a baby.
I was just a baby. I didn't
remember
feel
that
like
birthday
it at the time,
party.
but I realize now I was really just a baby.
And they threw you in there with this motley crew.
Yeah, it was the best birthday, actually, the best birthday I've ever had. I also share a birthday with somebody else on this.
Yes, my lovely.
Another special Gemini.
Yeah, pine cone.
Another little pine cone, Bill Barretta.
Brian, after completing a timeless classic like A Muppet Christmas Carol, you took on this swashbuckling adventure with the Muppets and Disney. So how did Muppet Treasure Island, which we know is celebrating its 25th anniversary, how did it come about?
Well, we did Muppet Christmas Carol, and we were really, really happy with the result of that movie. I think even my dad was struggling with what would we do with the next Muppet movie after doing the 3 movies that he had done. And there was a wonderful effect with taking the Muppets and letting them play other characters, treating them as an ensemble cast of performers that everybody knows, the Muppets, but then recasting them and putting them in another story. And we did that with Muppet Christmas Carol. And the whole movie, Muppet Christmas Carol, is all that, the contrasting of Dickens and Henson, and that's what influenced everything in that movie. And we were really thrilled with the result. Dave Goelz did such a fantastic job with Gonzo playing Charles Dickens. But coming off of that, I think we all felt like this was very liberating to be able to take the Muppet characters, put them in a story where they could play the roles without the baggage of their existing relationships and being able to play fresh in that moment. So we wanted another classic that was similar to that. And I think one of the top ones was Three Musketeers. And just as we finished Christmas Carol, Disney announced, "Oh, we're doing a Three Musketeers." Did you know that? I was like, "Oh no, well, we can't do that." So that was one of the ones that we considered. But we kept coming back around to Muppet Treasure Island because we loved the setting so much, and we loved the idea of the way that Dickens contrasted with the Muppets. We thought we were looking for another dynamic like that, a real contrasting dynamic, and thought that pirates and Long John Silver contrasted with the energy of the Muppets would be a really exciting place to go. And that's what led us to Muppet Treasure Island. And then we did a lot of work on the script. The script took a long time to get it just right. And it was because when we did Muppet Christmas Carol, we were able to really do a very faithful adaptation. And so when we set in to do Muppet Treasure Island, it was very different because it's a classic. And Robert Louis Stevenson wrote a classic story about a boy who becomes a man. And The pivotal moment in Treasure Island, as Robert Louis Stevenson wrote it, was Jim Hawkins becomes a man when he shoots a pirate in the face and watches him slowly die on the deck of the ship. And so we thought, okay, we had to do an adaptation of Treasure Island and avoid the central scene that Robert Louis Stevenson had created in his classic novel. So it was a little bit harder. It was harder. We took a lot more creative license in the adaptation with Treasure Island than we did in Christmas Carol, which created a lot of fun. And being able to put Miss Piggy in as Benjamina Gunn, all these were just like fun choices that we were able to make.
I remember meeting Brian and Martin Baker at Oval Road, Camden. And actually, no, that was the second audition. The first audition was in a room somewhere, I think in Goodge Street or something in London. And I met Brian and Mark and Martin. And yeah, I remember what I was wearing actually. And I just thought that nothing will come of this. Nothing will happen. There was so many kids. And I remember that before I knew it was Muppets, they'd said, they're doing a remake of Treasure Island. So at least it's going to be somewhere hot. It'll be somewhere in the Caribbean. And I remember thinking, brilliant, this is going to be, I'll do this because we'll go to the Caribbean. And I didn't realize we were going to do the whole thing in Shepperton. But obviously it was much better than we could have ever hoped for.
You had to sing a song in my office to me and Martin a cappella, and I think it was a song from Oliver, wasn't it? What did you sing in that?
Did he do a falsetto? Did he do falsetto?
Yeah, Bill's very critical of my falsetto voice. He's always had an opinion about that. But Bill said to me, I said, "Did you like the way I sang something better?" He went, "Well, maybe a bit too falsetto. You pitched too high.
All right, now I'm going to, but you don't remember the song that you sang. I don't remember what it was. I remember it was from Oliver. But the truth is, it's really, really hard to cast a new child actor in the lead role in a big motion picture. And our casting directors did look at thousands of actors. The first one they auditioned was Kevin. And then they kept auditioning. They auditioned like 1,000 boys. The first audition that they sent me was Kevin. And Kevin was the first one that Martin and I auditioned on a callback. And then we auditioned, not 100 more, but we auditioned many tens more of Jim Hawkins. And then we even screen tested 2 or 3 with a full screen test. And Kevin was, of course, the first screen test as well. And then Kevin got the role. And I always say afterwards, it's like, yeah, we did a tremendous amount of work, but we actually could have just auditioned one kid because that's who we used.
He was perfect.
Oh, goodness me. Oh, well, it was a very lengthy process. And I remember I found out on a Sunday, Martin phoned my mum on a Sunday at home and said, "Congratulations, Kevin is Jim Hawkins." And I remember we were so happy for about 10 years. We just rode that out for a really long time. It was brilliant. Yeah, it was a great experience. But I remember the screen test. And being in with other Muppets that weren't Dave and you guys. It was the guys that were in England. And I remember just it being completely overwhelming. I remember just thinking that this is really happening, like this screen test is it. And I realized in that moment, it meant everything to me to get this part. Yeah, it was really incredible. And it just got more surreal as time went by. And it was an incredible experience.
Well, Kevin was perfect for the role because Kevin captures that sense of, because this is what was so important. We needed a young boy who had such a strong sense of adventure and curiosity that he could drive this whole story. Because it all had to come from Jim Hawkins. The need for adventure and exploration had to be so overwhelming from that character that if that didn't work, if it looked like Jim Hawkins was along for the ride, the whole movie was going to fall on its face completely. And that was really the essence of casting Kevin, was that Kevin totally embraced that. And I remember on set, like, Kevin would be climbing up in the rafters, and I'd have riggers going, he can't be up there. Legally, he can't be up there. That's an insurance issue. And I'd be like, somebody get Kevin down. But Kevin really was Jim Hawkins. And I think, it was, we saw all these other actors, but we always came back to Kevin. It was always like, I don't know, am I crazy, or was the first actor we saw the right one? And absolutely it was, Kevin. And you did it brilliantly. And your singing voice, what Bill's making fun of, is your voice cracked right as we started shooting. Kevin came of age, started coming of age, and suddenly his voice went down like this. And he couldn't sing the song anymore. So Kevin had to lip sync to the one time he had pre-recorded the song before we started shooting, and could never sing it again. Isn't that right, Kevin?
The high part.
That's right.
Well, if I cross my legs too quickly, I can still hit that note.
But it was like a giant playground is what it seemed like to me. Like, you had so much fun. You were so, like Brian said, curiosity. You were everywhere. It was so much fun to watch you enjoy the moments. And even when we would roll, you were just so connected all the time, and I was like, wow, this is a kid, and you were just locked into it all the time. And the crying and the emotion of it, you were just, God, talk about perfect casting. He was amazing. He really was.
It was the perfect thing for, I think, at that age as well for me, because I was still at an age where I could just be friends with these guys. Like, I genuinely felt that. I genuinely felt a connection with Rizzo and Gonzo. I felt like we were buddies, and the same with everybody. It was just a completely immersive experience for me.
So now you don't really care for them, or what?
Yeah, you don't like them anymore?
Yeah. What happened?
Well, they don't keep in touch with me anymore. Yeah, it's difficult. I upset them on Facebook.
It's too hard to get through your people.
Yeah, that's all it is. That's all it is. But everybody on set as well was completely blown away with the magic of it. We had a beach, we had a pirate ship, we had everything. It was incredible. And I started the film when I was 14. It was hard to understand. I'd just come from a normal school. I wasn't a stage school kid or anything. And then suddenly I was just there with the Muppets.
We had a beach, a ship, and a Tim Curry. It was like big.
Bill, tell us about Clueless Morgan. This is, one of your first, big role in a feature film. What was that like for you?
Well, yeah, it was my first movie with the Muppets, and first kind of full character that I had, done. What can I tell you about him? I don't know. I think Brian could probably tell you more, because I'm not sure. I don't know if he grew during our shoot a little bit, because I remember doing the read through, and there wasn't a ton of dialogue for him. It was driven by Mad Monty and Polly. And I think I just somehow kept sneaking little things in, trying to get like little moments in, trying to find some stuff in between them. And fortunately, it got on there. But he's just an idiot. He's just a really naive.
It started with Dave and I. We did these. We called them the stupid pigs on a Muppet thing, right? And then you and Steve did those pigs on Muppets Tonight. Mm-hmm. And they were just so stupid. They never had a thought in their heads. And it was like, I feel like Clueless came out of this very intense period of ours where we were trying to create really, really unintelligent characters. And Clueless came out of that. And that was Bill's incredibly stupid character. But my favorite thing was in the fight scene at the end when they're on the beach and the pirates are fighting the good guys, and Clueless just turns it into a game. Suddenly it's a game, and he realizes they're losing, and he just goes, "I'm dead," and falls over. Just like the way kids do. If they're playing guns, it's like, oh, okay, I'm dead.
Yeah, I think.
And I thought that was such a hilarious choice to just be, I'm dead, I'm out, I'm dead.
Yeah, I quit. I think he was just a big kid, and I think also I was trying to find a voice quality somewhere that was kind of above, like Monty was down here, and Polly was in there, and so I tried to go a little higher, just to kind of lighten it up. So I was trying to find some sort of, little vocal balance between the three of them, and it just went for stupid. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I think he was written stupid, and then you did that lovely treatment to the character.
Yeah, I think we added a few things here and there.
Kevin and Dave, you had a lot of scenes together as cabin boys. What are some of the memories from being there together?
I don't remember Kevin very clearly. I didn't really like him, and I don't know. I really don't. I looked at that question earlier because you sent me all these questions written down, and I couldn't think of any answer for it. I mean, I just know we had a good time, and Kevin was great, and that's all I remember. I'm sorry.
You just were really thinking about yourself most of the time.
He was deep in character. I remember it being very, very funny all the time between you, Dave, and Steve. And I remember just the constant improvisation was really, I was very aware that everybody was incredibly talented. That was my feeling, was that everybody was very, very talented and comedically so, I mean, it was incredible, the stuff that you and Steve would come up with, off camera, on camera. And it just seemed to, when the cameras were rolling, you just seemed to just hit it straight away because you were never off. You were never off. You're always thinking of new material and new things. And it was an incredible thing to see, actually.
It was a hard-working movie for the Puppeteers because it was a crowded Muppet movie. Mm-hmm. We always had this. I always had this problem in the scripting that I knew in the third act of the movie I needed to split the group into 3 groups. I had to split the group into Kermit and Piggy and that group, and Long John Silver and his pirates. They had to be in a different group. And then on the ship, there had to be Muppets and another group of pirates with Jim Hawkins and Gonzo and Rizzo moving between them. And it meant that I had so many characters all the time. So it was like I was like, oh my God, there's so many characters. We were on the boat and it was shooting musical numbers and there's so many characters all the time. So it meant there weren't many quiet, intimate scenes. There were mostly crowded scenes, which kept all the Puppeteers working all the time. So it's like you did the scene where you were a lead performer and then instantly you were doing another character in another scene. Everybody had to work all the time with Treasure Island. I feel like that's the movie where I don't remember walking off the stage. It's like I was just on the stage all the time. Every shot was so complicated and crowded. And you know who else we need to talk about is Jennifer Saunders. We had so much fun working with her.
Oh, yeah.
And we didn't really talk enough about Tim Curry, but Jennifer Saunders was such a hoot. And she really jumped into the whole fun of the Muppets. And that relationship that she had with Kevin and Gonzo and Rizzo, but the way she was just she put you guys down so effortlessly, and it was so much fun. She could mind read you from across the building. She knew exactly what you were doing. But she was great fun to work with.
Yeah, she was incredible. I had the pleasure of working with Jennifer just a year ago on a play in London. We did an Oscar Wilde play together, and it was, again, she was incredible in that. She was Lady Windermere's fan. She was fantastic in that as well. But as Mrs. Bloveridge in Muppet Treasure Island, she was just brilliant. Great fun to have around. I remember thinking, Tim Curry, Jennifer Saunders, and Billy Connolly to a British person. That's
I know.
That's kind of like that's comedy royalty right there.
The Trinity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
really
Tim Curry, God, you can't say enough about him. He was just unbelievable.
Oh,
He recorded his big musical number and did performance in the recording studio that I thought was just incredible. I mean, I just kept listening to it over and over. I didn't have to learn his part, but I just loved it. And then he came along on the day of shooting the filming and said, I want to do it live. And I thought, I would never get a recording that good. How could you just throw that away? How could you take a chance? And Brian will know exactly what was used of those two performances, but it was...
Well, we had to use an awful lot of the live performance. And I think the main reason was, as a singer, he likes to move around on the rhythm a little bit. He doesn't want to be right on the rhythm. He wants to give it more character. He wants to be a little late coming in, a little early coming in. And he knew that if he had to lip sync, he couldn't just lose himself in the song. And so he really wanted to do it live. Now, we all had to wear little earwigs, but we didn't have enough for all of the puppeteers. So there were speakers around. And I remember the sound guys were really upset with me. They were like, you can't record Tim live on set with puppeteers under the set, and there's some speakers. But you know what? It was a great recording. And Tim has this thing. He used to say, give me 10 seconds just to get myself, I don't know what the term was that he used, but he could breathe himself into like having an aura that was 10 times the size of his normal aura. It was something quite extraordinary. And it happened when he was singing. And he would just we'd roll camera and he would just go, and it was like the man got bigger. And then he'd start singing and it was so powerful. And that high note that he hit at the end, he was only able to hit that on set, singing it live. And the sound guys, of course, said, can we have another go just to get a cleaner recording? And Tim was like, yes, of course, let me try. Not a chance. He couldn't hit it. And it's one of those interesting things that the pressure, he's one of those performers, give him an audience, put him under pressure, tell him that scene is all about him. And then the man grows to 3 times his size and everything's better. His singing's better. Like I said, the only way he could hit that high note was when it was, because we were shooting, it was incredibly complicated. My brother was holding him up on one hand above his head because, well, Tim was on wires, of course. My brother couldn't actually hold Tim Curry above his head with one hand. But my brother was in Sweetums. Yeah. My brother was inside of Sweetums, and he lifts Long John Silver up over his head, and he belts out that final note. And that was the only time Tim could ever hit that note.
Wow. Yeah, he was a magnet. I just remember being so drawn, and I don't know, I was holding a puppet up, and I'm sure it just dropped, and wasn't paying attention to what I was supposed to be doing, because I was just, like you said, it's this aura that he creates, and you just fall in love. There's nothing, that energy is unbelievable. I was in a dream, to begin with, just to be on a movie, but then Tim Curry, that was a whole other level that I, couldn't believe I was going to be working with this man. He was phenomenal.
I remember we were shooting up in the crow's nest for a whole day. And so Tim was stuck in the crow's nest with this rather overbearing 14-year-old. And I think by the end of the day, he wanted to jump out. But it was a really memorable day up there in the crow's nest with Tim Curry. And he told me some very funny stories.
There was an incredible scene with Kevin and Tim when Kevin does not shoot Tim in the face. And I mean, it's a powerful scene. It's just it was so well acted and so well shot. It just looked beautiful.
Yeah. The whistle, when I always can picture Kevin about trying to blow that whistle and he can't, and he wells up, and it's a great moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also another lovely scene when with the stars in the sky, when they talk about Polaris, the North Star, and he says, even in the China seas, that's north. And there's a great scene there, and you can just see Tim's sort of his thought process throughout the scene is incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Like everything in his eyes. And I remember seeing the film for the first time, and the scene that I was in, I couldn't take my eyes off of Tim. He just, everything was all there in his eyes, the way he looks at Jim Hawkins. It's all there, it's an incredible performance.
2 levels at once, deceiving the young boy. Oh my God, it was calculated and just exquisitely portrayed, and so subtly too.
Yeah. He's perfect. Perfect casting.
Kevin, do you remember any of your songs from the film?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, Bill. Bill does.
Yes, I do. How does
Gotta be something better.
Yeah. I look around here and I want to cry. I
There
feel
you
like
go.
the world is passing me by.
It is.
And I just can't help but wonder, am I doomed to wash and dry? And is it a curse I'm under to do it till I die? But I could be an explorer. I don't remember any of them. No, it's gone. I don't remember it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my favorite Kevin Bishop line. Can you do a favorite line?
Oh, it's all of our favorite. Why don't we all do it?
You ready? Well, but we won't be in sync. That's what
We won't be. No, we can't.
it looks like we're really doing it. Or it feels like we're really doing it. It's my favorite. We do that.
My favorite Clueless line is black and red.
Black and red.
Yeah, and I remember my favorite line from Gonzo and Rizzo in the kitchen was, "I'll wash, I'll dry, I'll break."
It's almost time for us to let Kevin go.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to see all your faces and hear all your voices. Take care.
Oh, Kevin, great to see you.
Great to see you,
Thanks,
Kevin.
everybody.
My pine cone. I love you, my pine cone.
What is the magic that makes the Muppets so special?
I think it's about the relationships below the characters. You know, and that to me is, I think, the most special thing about the Muppets. It's the fun that happens down below that drives these characters and these relationships, and the silliness and the playfulness and the hard work. You know, the task of doing these characters. You know, it's not just like getting up in front of a camera and performing. You're doing 5 or 6 different things at once, and you rely on each other. You know, it's so collaborative. It's my favorite part of it, is that we all rely on each other to make these characters come alive. And I think, to me, that's the most special thing for me.
I have like 3 answers. First, I would say it's empathy and just the celebration of life. It all came from Jim's philosophy, the way he loved life, and that we should all. Well, I guess I have 2 answers. That's one: empathy and celebration of life. But I'm going to take you over and show you the next answer. My light goes off. We're going over here in my office. We're wandering around in here. It's this huge palatial place, and this is a thing that I put on my wall. This is a picture. Let's see if I'm getting it. It's kind of dark here, but that's Jim and I on a location shoot for Muppets. I can't remember the name of the show. We did a shoot in Los Angeles, and down at the bottom, I had this plate engraved, and it's something that Jim wrote to his kids about 4 years before he died. And it says, "Please watch out for each other and love and forgive everybody. It's a good life. Enjoy it." And that was, that's how he lived. And so that became one of my favorite things ever. And that's kind of what Jim is about, is still about.
The greatest theme of my dad's work was to love each other for your differences and not for your similarities. And I think he felt this on a very, very deep level.
Absolutely.
And I think people underestimate that he was born in Mississippi in 1936. He didn't move to Washington until he was a teenager. And not surprisingly, he left one of the most racist places in the world as a kid and dedicated his life to pigs that fall in love with frogs, and frogs that fall in love with bears, and everyone loving each other for their differences and not their similarities. And you'll also notice in Jim's work, there's almost There's very, very seldom the nuclear family. Because as much as we all say family is the most important thing, and maybe my dad was a great father, and I know he felt the family was an important thing, living with the rule that family is the most important thing and next comes community is what's going to start world wars over and over and over and over. And what my dad really believed in was that you need to love and respect that person that is most different from you for their differences. And I think that's the essence of the message of my dad's work that should and could and continues hopefully to change the world for a better place.
Well said.
Nothing to add to that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for being with us here today, everybody.
Oh, sure.
Thank
Our
you.
pleasure. It was fun.
See ya.
Well, on behalf of D23, the official Disney fan club, and the Muppet Studio, I want to thank you all for helping create such iconic characters and carry on this legacy that we're so lucky to be part of. And as a reminder, Muppet Treasure Island and Muppets Now are all streaming on Disney Plus, and all 5 seasons of The Muppet Show will debut for your binging pleasure tomorrow. And for even more Muppet Mayhem, check out D23.com, along with an exclusive interview with all of us in the spring edition of Disney 23 magazine. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pine cone. I love you, my pine cone. My pine cone.
See you later, gorgeous.
Yeah, right.
All right, sweetheart.